PDP Board of Trustees clash over support for party's presidential aspirant. Presidential Committee concludes the investigation on Abuja tremor, confirms Nigeria is now prone to earthquakes. In international news, 4 children killed in cargo bike train accidents in the Netherlands. And in sports, Super Eagles of Nigeria move up a spot in FIFA rankings.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the appointment of Minister of Transportation Rotimi Amaechi as Director General of the Buhari-Osinbajo Presidential Campaign Committee for his re-election bid. Amaechi headed the President's Campaign Committee for the 2015 general elections that brought into office the current administration. The new Director General will announce other appointments into the campaign structure as approved by the President. The national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Adams Oshiomhole, has disclosed that APC governors can go on with indirect primaries in the selection of members into elective positions, but with a caveat that the process must be transparent. Oshiomhole had a subsequent meeting with APC governors who gave him reasons why indirect primaries should be adopted. Controversy had surrounded discussions of what method should be used in selecting people for elective offices in different states. Oshiomhole said his continuous push for direct primaries as against the consensus or indirect primaries is a way of staving off controversy. The Board of Trustees of the People's Democratic Party seems to be going through some cracks in its wall over its support for presidential aspirants. The Board of Trustees had earlier vowed to be neutral and not declare support for any of the 13 aspirants jostling to fly the party's presidential flag. It appears the trustees could not withhold themselves from doing so. Some in the party have shown their grievances that 3 members of the Board of Trustees, John Nwodo, Vincent Ogbulafo and Tom Ikeme, who were present at the inauguration of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, says it is ready for Saturday's governorship election in Osun State. The police have tightened security arrangements around the Commission's Osogbo headquarters with a high number of security personnel. INEC says this became necessary as the Commission had begun distribution of sensitive election materials to INEC offices in the 13 local government areas. Resident Electoral Commissioner Olusegun Agbaje says the Commission is ready to deliver a transparent and credible election. The police has also built a barricade in front of the INEC headquarters to forestall any acts of violence.
We have 30 local government areas, and the arrangement with the authority of this bank is that you batch and take them 3 local government areas. So we are starting with the federal local government, the land local government, and Bodo local government areas.
The party agents have each been given the distribution sheet. They are just to confirm the numbers based on the boxes, and when they tally, they will find out that that is equal to the number of the ballot papers issued for the conduct of elections in that particular local government.
The Presidential Committee on the recent tremor in Abuja has concluded investigations into recent reports that earthquake has become a potential hazard in Nigeria. Committee Chairman Professor Saidu Mohammed submitted the reports to the Ministry of Science and Technology, Dr. Ogbonnaya Onu, on Thursday. Mohammed said the study conducted by Julius Berger on the geological, hydrological and geotechnical investigation for Abuja identified Mpape as a shear zone that was weak with several fractures and fault system. He said though the earthquakes may have been of low magnitude, a few factors had combined caused hydrological instability along the fractures. Onu said the federal government would conduct further researches. 1 person was killed and 13 others injured in a ghastly multiple vehicle accident at a traffic light in Gombe. FRC says the accident was caused by the driver of a commercial vehicle who rammed into 8 other vehicles at the traffic light after his brake failed and he lost control. One of the survivors blamed the accident on the barriers that had been removed by the government. FIRC had called on the government to forestall or reinstall the barriers at strategic areas where they were initially placed. The federal government has directed the Nigeria Customs Service at the nation's airports to immediately stop leveling fines on Nigerians holding dual citizenships. Minister of Interior Abdurrahman Dambazal said this directive is in line with President Buhari's resolve for ease of movement for Nigerians holding dual citizenships. He had received many complaints about this. Dambazal said it is a crime to ask or pay money in that regard. He said henceforth, Nigerian nationals with dual citizenship should only present both traveling documents of their countries of nationality to the immigration officials on duty upon arrival and departure, and also report to appropriate quarters any officer who attempts to impose such charges on them. Nigerians may soon pay less for rice because the federal government, Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria and Rice Processors Association of Nigeria have agreed to cut down the price in the market. The federal government had met with the leadership of the rice associations and distributors. Minister of Agriculture Aldo Ogbe said the decision became necessary so the majority of Nigerians could afford the nation's staple food. There was also an agreement with the Central Bank of Nigeria to bring down interest rates in agriculture and manufacturing to one single digit. The Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority has given a December 31st deadline to all foreign airlines yet to automate the remittance of the 5% ticket sales charge. NCAA Public Relations Manager Sam Adrogboye wants that all defaulting airlines will face severe sanctions from January. Adrogboye says 30 airlines are in default. Airlines are required to comply with the federal government's directive on the Aviation Revenue Automation Project. Adrogboye says more domestic airlines are compliant with the directive. Motorists and residents of Yanoiba, Okuko-Maiko and Mautu are crying for help over the state of the abandoned Lagos-Badagry highway. They have called on the Lagos State government to reduce their suffering by completing the road construction. They say the rains and slow work pace on the 10-lane highway has contributed to the unending congestion on the road. China's Civil Engineering and Construction Company, contractors for the road project, said it has not been paid, so work on the highway project cannot proceed. Residents of Onara local government area in Nakoro were jubilating as they witnessed the flag-off ceremony of the resuscitation of the electrification project in their communities. For 14 years, the residents have been in darkness without electricity because the areas were cut off from the national grid. Residents were elated that they can now enjoy basic electricity and good water. Chairman of the local government, Buliaminu Ogundele, said residents had suffered neglect for a long time but can now enjoy the dividends. Coming up, news around Africa. 89 die in Tanzania ferry disaster. Desperate search begins. And later, 4 children die as cargo bike clash with train in the Netherlands.
You are watching ANN.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Adam, go and bring us your husband. Okay, hello baby. We're in this together, okay? Can you hear me? Keep coming forward. Wait, stop. You okay, lean to your right. Keep walking down, keep walking to the left. Yes. You're almost here. Keep going. You are here. Wow, you did it.
I'm just so glad I didn't have to use my cane to do this.
And I am so glad no other man got you before me. Let me be your eyes.
We will never stop working to give you a network you can rely on so you can enjoy life's special moments. MTN, everywhere you go.
Welcome back. This is CNN News. In Africa, more than 130 persons have now died and more than 200 have yet to have drowned when a vessel carrying hundreds of people capsized on Tanzania's Lake Victoria on Thursday. The ferry overturned near the shores of Okara Island on its way from Bujumbura. Local media say the ferry's official capacity was 100, but it carried more than 400 passengers when it capsized. Officials believe the overloaded vessel tipped over when crowds on board moved to one side as it docked. Mwanza Regional Commissioner John Mongela said 37 were rescued and are in critical condition. Meanwhile, the Tanzanian government has ordered a U.S. aid organization to immediately stop advertising family planning services in the country's media. The country's permanent secretary for health says publishing any family planning content in any media channel is banned until further notice. Earlier this month, President John Magufuli had encouraged women in his country to stop using contraceptives and give birth to more children because Tanzania needs more people. Opposition MP Cecil Wambe has criticized the comments, saying they contradict the country's health policy. Businesses in Zimbabwe have called on the government to help promote value addition of products to increase export revenue and create downstream employment for communities. Zimbabwe is on a slow but steady economic turnaround, but it still has a long way to go to regain its glory status as the breadbasket of Southern Africa and also to gain a stand in global economies. Stakeholders from Bulawayo, the country's former industrial hub and second largest city, have called on governments to encourage and promote value addition of products, particularly in mining and manufacturing. Exporting products as finished goods will increase economic prospects for the nation as well as provide much-needed employment throughout the value chain.
We need to add value to our raw materials and export them as finished products. By so doing, we add value to our raw materials. We also create employment.
South Africa's police ministry says it will train more police officers in the near future to tackle the alarming increase in crime rates nationwide. The decision was made at the National Summit on Crime and Violence Prevention held on Wednesday and Thursday in Boksburg. The aim of the summit was to help find anti-crime strategies after last year's alarming crime statistics released on Tuesday. Murder rate has increased and the number of cases of violence against women and children has also escalated, which an official of the summit says is particularly of great concern for the governors of the country.
The high level of violence against women and children in South Africa is particularly alarming. We also know, whilst crime stats have been released 2 days ago, it's a fact that this area of crimes, not all of these crimes are reported.
9 persons, including 2 civilians, have been killed on Thursday in fresh fighting between rival armed groups in the Libyan capital, Tripoli. Emergency Services spokesman Osama Ali says 13 others were wounded in the violence. Renewed clashes erupted this week, especially in the Salahuddin neighborhood and on the route to Tripoli International Airport, despite a ceasefire agreement signed earlier this month. Before the ceasefire came into effect, at least 60 persons had lost their lives and more than 150, mostly civilians, wounded during week-long clashes. UN support mission in Libya issued a Twitter appeal on Thursday urging the armed groups to abide by the ceasefire. It says exposing civilians to harm is prohibited. When we return, Netherlands train accident kills 4 children, and later, Super Eagles move up a notch in FIFA latest rankings.
You are watching ANN.
MTN gives 2,000% bonus for reactivating your MTN SIM. That's right. If you haven't used your MTN SIM for 45 days or more, recharge now and get 2,000% bonus. That's right, 2,000% bonus for your first recharge of every month.
While the world sleeps, NN News stays awake. News takes no time off. We are awake so you can sleep. We report the stories that keep you up to date, events that affect your day, your week, month, and experiences. We scour the world, bringing it to your living room. Watch NN News in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is NN News. In international stories, non-governmental organizations in Paris are concerned about the refugee crisis as camps are overflowing onto the streets. When the migrant camps in Calais in northern France closed to last year, many refugees moved to the big cities like Paris.
I left my country because my life was in danger, so I don't want them to know where I am. Everything I will do will be in order to have a decent life next to my pregnant girlfriend.
Volunteers for food and water. Many of the sub-Saharan African migrants who risk reaching Spain's southern shores want to head north to France and elsewhere in Europe. With wave after wave of migrants landing near Spain's famed tourist beaches, Spanish authorities and non-government organizations are losing no time to move them closer to northern EU neighbors like France. The Red Cross assisted about 2,500 migrants in Barcelona this summer to make the journey. Mamoudou Dion from West Africa is not his real name. He arrived in Spain 2 weeks ago after crossing the Mediterranean Sea to Europe without a visa, and he doesn't want to reveal his real identity.
Since a couple of years ago, there are hundreds of people who are there and they stay on the streets.
4 children have been killed in Amsterdam when a train struck a cargo bike in which they were riding to school. A woman controlling the bike had gone over the level crossing. Dutch parents commonly use electrically powered bikes to transport their children. Another child and a woman were critically injured in the accident. ProRail's chief executive, the company responsible for rail infrastructure in the Netherlands, Pierre Eringa, says initial investigations suggest the barriers at the crossing were working correctly at the time of the accident. He says real cause of the collision is still under investigation. Vietnam's president and former chief of internal security, Tran Dai Quang, has died in the early hours of Friday in a military hospital in Hanoi. He was one of the most high-profile leaders in the communist country. Quang was 61. The late president has hosted a reception for China's Supreme Court chief 2 days ago. Quang died in the early hours of Friday in a military hospital. Former Health Minister Wen Kwok Trill says the late president was ill for months and had been treated in Japan 6 times for a severe virus for which no efficient treatment has been developed. Up next, sport. Super Eagles move up a spot in FIFA latest rankings. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
If you know fit go internet or follow for Twitter, you know fit snap photo send or get it photo send. Now because you dey use Palasa, your phone no dey answer. See me see wahala. My brother, go get smartphone, yeah. Go get Palasa phone. Phone wey no go for your hand, yeah. Go get Palasa phone. Phone wey no fit take selfie. Go get Palasa phone. No be correct phone, yeah. Go get Palasa phone.
Upgrade to a smartphone today and get double data for 6 months on any MTN data bundle you buy. Simply purchase a smartphone from any store anywhere in Nigeria or bring your current smartphone from any network. Insert your MTN SIM card to start enjoying your double data bonus. Offer is open to all new and existing MTN subscribers. Join the largest smartphone movement today.
Make it not for your hand,
There is a new all-news network on the scene in Nigeria to give news from a purely news perspective and to promote free information flow across Africa. Fresh views, unbiased, bold, with a purely African view. African News Network, ANN, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sport, with Super Eagles' convincing win in the last African Cup of Nations qualifying match in Seychelles and another win in an international friendly against Liberia earlier this month, Nigeria has pushed one spot upwards following the latest FIFA rankings. Nigeria has climbed from 49th to 48th in the global rankings and from 7th to 5th on the continent. Tunisia moved up one place to 23rd in the world to become the highest ranked national team in Africa. Senegal dropped one spot to 25th in the world and 2nd in Africa. Democratic Republic of the Congo and Morocco followed in 3rd and 4th spots before Nigeria. Cameroon, Ghana, Burkina Faso, Mali and Egypt completed top 10 on the continent. Sierra Leone's Anti-Corruption Commission has taken control of the country's football association on Tuesday, forcing SLFA President Ishe Johansson to step aside. The association's premises were allegedly intruded by the ACC with the collaboration of armed forces and the Ministry of Sport. FIFA status forbids interference from an outside third party in the administration of its members. FIFA warned Sierra Leone's risk international ban following the decision to overturn the leadership of the Football Association. That's ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on this and other stories, visit our website, annafrica.net. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a great weekend.